This is a true story that happened in my town.
I'm not even gonna beat around the bush with this one, fellas. Weapons rocked so hard. Now let's get into today's review. Hey everybody, I'm Killjoy Jake, and instead of having friends, I have horror movies. Before we get into today's review, please make sure to like this video and subscribe for more horror movie reviews just like this one. Also, the best way to support the page is by becoming a Patreon or channel member. Members just got an exclusive review video of James Gunn's Superman. Become a member today to see weekly exclusive videos on things that are outside the realm of horror. Stuff that I typically wouldn't cover on this page that you still may be interested in. Also, thank you to some of our brand new Patreon members this week, like Matthew Todd, Mad Apple, and Enzo Borghetto. Thank you guys again for your support. All right, now let's get into this. Weapons is the sophomore feature from director Zach Cregger, serving as a follow-up to his groundbreaking 2022 film Barbarian. Technically, both movies take place in the same universe as well if we consider that Easter egg from the Maybrook Missing website. I'll have a link to that in the description of this video if you want to search for more clues regarding the world of Weapons. The plot description for the film reads, when all but one child from the same classroom mysteriously vanish on the same night at exactly the same time, a community is left questioning who or what is behind their disappearance. Weapons is a brilliantly executed broken narrative that builds tension and expands upon an already intriguing mystery in such a unique way. As you see more and more of what's actually been unfolding in this town throughout the entire flick from different people's perspectives, you get to see just how far down this rabbit hole goes. I will say I've seen a few people say they were ultimately disappointed with the film because it didn't have this big shocking reveal. If you go into this film expecting a Scream style shock reveal right before the third act, you're gonna be disappointed. That's not what this movie's trying to do. To me, this movie was much more about the dramatic irony about each character having like a piece of it, but not fully knowing what the full scope of what the hell's going on here is, until maybe they get together at one point. No spoilers, not yet at least. That to me is just something we don't get as much in film and is way more unique in my opinion, opposed to someone just taking off a mask. To me, Weapons is an instant horror classic because of how different it is in terms of revealing shocks and surprises opposed to everything else in the horror space these days. I'm predicting now this is a movie we're going to be talking about decades and decades into the future about how it influenced horror. There's great characters, there's scares that will melt your face, mesmerizing visuals, and such a wide range of emotions, whether that's pity, glee, terror, or just downright silliness, all executed excellently here. It's a film that reminds me a lot of Longlegs from last year, but its twist actually works with its more complicated setup, where with Longlegs, that's arguable. We'll talk more about that comparison in a minute here. If you saw the trailer for this movie and you were really intrigued by the concept, then you gotta go see this one in the theaters. I think you're gonna love it. It's an excellent premise with such an insane resolve filled with Zach Cregger's perfect balance of terror to humor and a spoonful of ambiguity to keep the horror going beyond the credits. I don't know what else I can say about this movie without spoiling it, so please go see this one. Big spoiler warning here. You have been warned. Go no further if you don't want the film spoiled, and seriously, you don't want this one spoiled, fellas. Starting off with the characters here, oh baby do I love our main players. Starting off with Justine, she is just so relatable in the sense that she's well-intentioned but goes about her life in haphazard ways. There's a discussion between her and the principal of the school she teaches at where they bring up how she was reprimanded for taking a kid home from school who didn't catch their ride. This little exchange between these two characters tells me everything I need to know about Julia Gardner's character here. She approaches her love life and her own personal investigation into what happened to all these kids the exact same way. Archer is a wonderfully similar character too, which makes both the distortion and the camaraderie between these two work so damn well. Josh Brolin's father on a mission character here has no choice but to be suspicious of Miss Gandy. It makes sense why she's treated as the town's pariah, being the only common factor in the disappearance. I love the moment in this film when they realize they have the same intentions. They both just want to make sure that these kids can get home safe. It's excellent writing, but it's especially paced well because it doesn't happen too early on. If it did, some of the tension might have been broken too early. Thankfully, this movie understands that emotions run high with both of these characters, and it makes this thriller even more insane. I do want to note about Archer's character here that I'm pretty sure Pedro Pascal was originally supposed to play this role before dropping out due to a scheduling conflict, but I have to say, I think Josh Brolin is perfectly cast here. Don't get me wrong though, I love me some Pedro. I especially especially loved him in Eddington this year. I like that he's in everything. I don't get the discourse. I think it's dumb. Austin Abrams as James is such a hilariously tragic character too. His whole back and forth with Alden Ehrenreich's Paul here is a hilarious middle chapter to this madness. This film really is a rabbit hole. This whole middle part of the movie kind of takes you out of the whole mystery about the kids for a moment to focus on this other side story between this cop and this junkie. There's suddenly this all-new dilemma at hand with an all-new kind of horror too that will make any germaphobe squirm in their seats. Like me. This was surprisingly the scariest part of the whole film for me. Paul is terrified that he just contracted a life-changing disease, which is played as a bit at one point, and James can't catch a break running from these cops. There's a moment here as an audience member where you're wondering how far this thing is gonna spiral before it loops back to the actual story going on, but it finds a really clever way to do that. This reminds me a lot of in Barbarian, where we just randomly cut to Justin Long in California, and you're like, what the hell's going on? Speaking of which, that Justin Long cameo here was awesome. But if there's any point to be made here with all of this, is that all of these things work in tandem in ways you never expect. That to me is what keeps the mystery going, keeps the intrigue alive. The brilliance of this movie is that it sets up so many questions to slowly answer throughout each of its broken narratives. And even though the most intriguing thing is what happened to these kids, there's other stuff happening that is just as good. Nothing falls below a certain line with everything else. Every character ends up serving the story by having a part of the explanation, but it's only when they are all together at the end that what's happening here becomes clear. With that though, there are some elements that are perfectly left ambiguous to keep the horror going beyond the credits. Not everything gets resolved, and that's a good thing. Let's break some of these things down. So one of the less important things I just want to get out of the way real quick here is that we learn that Paul maybe contracted a disease. It's never confirmed one way, shape, or form. We just get a hint that it could have happened. Then we also get the confirmation that he did have sex with Justine, and it's like, this guy sucks. So is Justine just gonna go to the doctor one day and get that unfortunate news and have no idea how that happened? Maybe. That is a terrifying thing to happen to a lead character. Oh my god. Justine does not deserve that either. She's so sweet. Paul sucks, man. And then we also have to talk about some of the ambiguity with Gladys's backstory. I'm so glad that Mrs. Kwan from the live-action Cat in the Hat finally got her own spin-off horror movie. Seriously though, this is where we need to start talking about some of the Longlegs comparisons. One of the most intriguing elements to Oz Perkins' 2024 feature was seeing Nicolas Cage as this psychopath who somehow was able to force fathers to kill their entire families. For me at least, due to the ultimate reveal at the end of the film, it almost renders Dale Cobble as kind of useless, and I found myself way more invested in Alicia Witt's character. What also adds to the disappointment of Longlegs' finale is the pretentious voiceover that just explains away literally everything happening here. That just kills any sort of mystery or intrigue I would have had with this one, where the very beginning of this movie, actually most of Longlegs, I think is phenomenal, very competently made, a great slow burning story that is just so much fun to watch. Weapons does something similar, but way more effective in my opinion. Sure, there's a narrator to this story too, sort of filling in the gaps here and there at the beginning, but she never fully gives away everything. From the very beginning of this film to the very end, you get this sense that not everybody in the world knows exactly what happened here. There's this sense of loss of justice, like this horrible thing happened and nothing really came from it. There's also this ominous tease that ends the film where she says that the kids all went home. Last year, some of them even started talking again. That alone is one of the most terrifying things about this entire movie. Those two sentences could be a whole other movie all on its own. Zach Cregger has recently said that he wanted to do more with this movie, potentially some sort of sequel. I think that could be something right there. Those chilling final words leave you in the same place as where you started with this movie, a horrifying mystery. I like that Gladys's full deal is never exactly explained. There's just little context clues that could give us like a hint at what's going on there. That's very different than what's going on with Nicolas Cage's character in Longlegs, where he's basically just a puppet for the devil. There's a ton of hints at her being a witch, but with so many similarities to the Pied Piper, maybe she's a more complex entity. The point being though, Zach Cregger gave us just enough for this story to work. Our mind has to fill in the blanks. That is pure elemental horror brilliance from Mr. Cregger here, and I cannot praise him enough for what he did in this feature. Where did Gladys come from, and are there more like her? Maybe this is hyperbole, maybe it's recency bias, say whatever you want, I don't care. I loved this movie so much, and I personally think that Zach Cregger is already a master of horror at this point. He has made two features that would easily be high up on my top 10 list of the entire decade so far, with Weapons likely topping that. I very much so look forward to his next film, which is a brand new take on the Resident Evil franchise. We'll see that one in about a year. What did you guys think about Weapons? Let me know down in the comments below. Thank you all again for watching. Please subscribe, and as always, don't forget to kill it out there, y'all.